Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Pranam everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Today we are doing the 17th, 19th, 17th, 18th and 19th, 3 shlokas of the 7th chapter. In the last 2 sessions, we did these 2 shlokas, the 15th and 16th shlokas. In the 15th shloka, Sri Bhagavan is telling us about 4 types of dushkritis, 4 types of people who are actually learned, but they don't take his refuge. Namam dushkritino mudaha prapadyante naradamaha mayaya pahrita jnanaha asuram bhavamashritaha. And in the 16th shloka, he tells us about 4 types of sukritis. Sukritis are people who are righteous and they take his refuge. Chaturvidha bhajante mam janaha sukritino arjuna arto jigyasurartharthi jnani cha bharatarshava. So building on this, we talked about this framework given by Vishwanath Chakravarti, where bhakti, he identifies 3 categories of bhakti: Guni Bhuta Bhakti, Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti, and Kevala Bhakti. Guni Bhuta Bhakti is one in which bhakti is present in a secondary manner. It is not the prominent thing. The goal of the sadhaka is either materialistic karma, sakama karma, whereby the person wants a better material future, into which the person adds bhakti. In the practices of dharma, the person adds bhakti to Krishna so that those practices become successful. Or, if not materialistic, the person is looking for mukti, liberation from this samsara, and thereby practices karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, etc. And there too, bhakti is not predominant. Bhakti is used as an element to ensure that that practice of yoga becomes successful. So this form of bhakti, where bhakti is included just to make the main other process successful, is called Guni Bhuta Bhakti. Guni Bhuta in Sanskrit means something that's present in a small quantity or in a secondary sense. Okay, then there is Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti, which is in contrast to Guni Bhuta Bhakti, where bhakti is the predominant element in the mind of the sadhaka, the practitioner. So here, this is what the 16th shloka of the 7th chapter, which we saw last week, is talking about. And we said, Sri Bhagavan there points out 4 types of people who practice this Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti: the Artha, person who comes to him to seek relief from material distress; the Jigyasu, who is actually very curious to know about different things, the reality, answers to different questions that are bothering him. It could be material subjects, or it could be even answers to the spiritual question of the self. So the Jigyasu, and then the Artharthi. Artharthi is the person who is looking for material wealth, material prosperity. So we told the story of Dhruva. Dhruva was looking for material prosperity and then devoted himself to Vishnu in order to get that material prosperity. Of course, the happy ending in the story was that at the end of it, when he found Vishnu, he realized that he had got something far greater than what he was looking for. And therefore, his material desires got completely purified by the realization of Vishnu. So these 3 people are called Karma Mishra Bhakti. And finally, the 4th type is the Jnani, who does Jnana Mishra Bhakti. This form of bhakti is where the person is completely devoted to Vishnu with the hope or with the aim of getting mukti from this samsara, and the mukti in the state of being an eternal bhakta of Vishnu in Vaikuntha, where he engages eternally in the bhakti of Vishnu along with Vishnu. So this is called Jnani in this shloka, in the 16th shloka of the 7th chapter. Now, when we were discussing this, we also touched upon Kevala Bhakti. In Kevala Bhakti, which is completely pure bhakti, where even the desire for mukti is not there. Not only is there not a desire for any material return like the artha, jigyasu, arthasi, but even the desire for mukti, the liberation from samsara also is removed, or even that is considered a disturbance to that bhakti, where the person thinks that the only thing that I want is the pleasure of Krishna and nothing else. That mentality, and that we discussed, is endowed with two aspects, ekata and anukulata. And this therefore is the highest form of bhakti. And the bhakta here has what is called as Bhagavad Prema, pure Bhagavad Prema. In Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti also there is Bhagavad Prem, but the Prem is mixed with the desire for something else which the person wants. There is some swartha in that, but Kevala Bhakti is purely parartha. It has no swartha in it. That is the bhakti of Vrindavan. Yeah, Vrindavan Bhakti. Bhakti of Vrindavan is of that type. So after discussing this, we are now ready to hear the next three shlokas, 17th, 18th, and 19th shlokas of the 7th chapter of Gita. Here, Sri Bhagavan is now elaborating on the fourth type of Pradhani Bhuta Bhakta that he talked about, the Jnani. So he says in the 17th shloka, Tesham Jnani Nitya Yuktaha Eka Bhaktir Vishishyate Priyohi Jnani Notyartham Aham Sacha Mama Priyaha. Among these people, the Jnani is extremely dear to me. So let's hear the description of Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushana of this shloka. So I have directly copied and pasted the commentary which I am reading from his work. This is called the Gita Bhushana Bhashya. That's the name of his commentary. And he writes this. It says, Chaturshu Jnaninaha Sraishtyamaha Teshami. Among these four, Sri Bhagavan is highlighting the superiority of the fourth type, the Jnani. Jnani Vishishyate Sreshto Bhavati. Yadasau Nitya Yuktaha Eka Bhaktischa. Because such a person, he is always engaged in Eka Bhakti, one-pointed Bhakti. Arti Vinashadi Kamana Virahat Nityam Maya Yogavan. So he doesn't have any desire like the other three. The other three are thinking my distress should be removed, or my question should be answered, or my wealth, I should obtain wealth. This kind of thing doesn't bother him. And so his unity with me is much stronger. Artha Destu Yavat Kamita Praptihi Mad Yogaha. For these people, other three people, Artha, Jigyasu, Artharthi, only until they get what they want will they really be connected to me. But for the Jnani, ekasmin mayeva jnaninaha bhaktihi. For him, it's always, he's not looking for something in the short term. For him, mukti, he eternally wants to come to me, wants to be with me. So for him, there is nothing to get in return in this world. Artha destu swakamite tat pradatritvena mai. So this Artha and other people are only motivated by what they want. Like Dhruva, for example, would not have gone to the forest if he did not want the kingdom. Only for that he went. He didn't come for me, actually. He went for that, and eventually he decided to come to me. Mai chato jnani tataha sreshtaha. Therefore, the jnani is the supreme among them. Atripyan aha priyohi iti. Not satisfied with just saying this much, Sri Bhagavan says, priyohi, means you can see the second line of the shloka begins with priyohi. In the first line he is saying, Tesham Jnani Nitya Yuktaha Eka Bhaktir Vishishyate. Among these four, the Jnani is supreme. But merely by saying the first line of the shloka, Sri Bhagavan is not satisfied. So, Atripyan, Priyohi, he wants to say that Jnaninaha hi aham atyartham priyaha premaspadam. I am very dear to that Jnani. Atyartham priyaha, extremely dear to that Jnani. Premaspadam means I am the basis for feeling that love, prema. Sahi mat priyata sudha sindhu nimagnaha. Such a person, he is fully drowned. Sudha sindhu. Sindhu means ocean. Sudha means nectar. The ocean of nectar, nimagno. He is fully drowned in that ocean of nectar. Of what? Of mat priyata, my love. Feeling that love for me, he is fully drowned in that ocean of nectar. Nanyat kinchit anusandatte. He does not think of anything else, or does not go towards anything else. His mind does not go towards anything else. Tasya mat priyata aparimita iti. So his priyata, his love or affection for me is aparimita. It is unbounded. There's no bound on it. Iti bodayitum athyartha shabdaha. In order to communicate that, Sri Bhagavan is using that word athyartha in the shloka. sarvagya ananta shaktischaham yam vaktum na shaknomi ityartha. So he's saying, even though I am sarvagya, I am all-knowing, I am ananta shakti, means I have infinite shakti, but even with all that, I am not able to describe how much that person feels for me and how much I feel for him. Such a jnani, ye yatha mam ityadi nyayena tathaiva mama priyaha. So just as he loves me so much, in the same manner, just like I have said in the 4th chapter, 11th shloka, Gita 4.11, says, ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. Just as one approaches me, in the same way, I reciprocate with him. So, because this person approaches me with so much affection, I also reciprocate with the same affection towards him. Mamapi tat priyata tadvat aparimita ityartha. So I also feel unbounded affection or unbounded love for that jnani, that bhakta. Says, of them the jnani who seeks liberation from material existence in my eternal service and is always connected with me in one pointed bhakti stands out from the rest. I am extremely dear to the jnani, and in turn, he is extremely dear to me. So then Sri Bhagavan builds on this. In the 18th shloka, he says, Udaraha sarva evaite jnani tu atmaiva me matam astitaha sahi yuktatma mamevanuttamam gatim. So here what does Vasudeva say? He builds on his own commentary. He says, Nanu artadayaha tava priyaha na bhavanti. If you say that the jnani is so dear to you and you are highlighting the jnani separately from the other three, are you saying that the other three are not dear to you? Is that what you are saying? So Sri Vasudeva raises this question and he answers it. He said, no, ma evam. No, that's not so. Ma evam atyarthamiti visheshanadityaha udaraha iti. So that atyartha visheshana is there for the jnani, but at the same time, all the others in general, udaraha, means they are large-hearted and generous. They are good people. Okay, so they are also dear to me. Sarva evaite artadayaha udaraha vadanyaha. They are also udaraha. Vadanyaha means magnanimous person who is very generous, who is very kind to others. And therefore, udaro datra mahatoho ityamaraha. So such people are also very dear to me. Yemam bhajantaha maya ditsitam kinchit swabhishtam matto grinhanti te bhaktavatsyalyam mayam prachanto mama bahupradaha priyaha eva iti bhava. So they come to me and they want something, they come to me and they rely upon me. They approach me just like a child comes to its parent. Just because the child is asking something from its parent, the parent does not think that, okay, you are asking something and therefore there is a business exchange. That the parent doesn't think like that. The parent likes it and feels that love. So therefore, I also feel the love when my bhakta comes to me for whatever they want. Jnani tu mama atma eva. But still, I repeat what I said in the last shloka. Jnani tu mama atma eva. In the last shloka, I said the jnani is atyartham priyaha. Now I'm saying the jnani is mama atma. He is just my atma, my own self. He is my own self. He yasmat sadhyani yuktatma madarpita manaha mattaha anyata kinchidapi anichanna ati priyena maya vina lavamapi sthatum asamartho mameva sarvottamam gatim prapyam astitaha nischitavan ataha tena tadrishena vina lavamapi sthatum asamarthasya mama atma eva saha. He says this person is such that his mentality is that even for a moment he cannot live without thinking about me, and he doesn't want anything other than me, other than my my satisfaction, doing what I think should be done. He's always thinking in terms of what I think, and therefore he cannot live, or he cannot stay. Sthatum asamartha, lavamapi sthatum asamartha. Even a little bit he cannot stay without thinking about me, and therefore in return I am also like that. I cannot stay even for a moment without thinking about him. Nacha jnani jivasya harihi svena abedamaha iti vachyam. So here, Baladeva, he's actually a Vedantic commentator. He's written a bhashya also on the Brahma Sutra. It's called the Govinda Bhashya. And he refutes Advaita. Advaita, Shankara's Advaita. So after Shankara, a number of other scholars who wrote on Vedanta, they offered arguments to refute Advaita, or why they don't accept Advaita as the conclusion of the Brahma Sutra. So Baladeva is also one of them. So he says, now Bhagavan is saying that this person is my Atma. Now, this should not be mistaken to be an Advaitic conclusion, because somebody can think that now you can clearly see that he's saying he's my own Atma. That means the Jiva and Brahma, they are non-different from each other. There's nothing called Jivatma. Okay, that's what Advaita says. Advaita says there is no Jivatma. Jivatma is just an imaginary upadhi, conception of the Brahman. Brahman, when it comes under the influence of its own Prakriti, Maya Prakriti, it thinks that a part of it has become Jivatma. Okay? So there are a lot of very, very elaborate arguments against Advaita, which obviously is not covered here. They're in the other books. I can discuss that later with whoever is interested. So here in this particular place, he just cautions us to say that don't think that this means Advaita. Nacha jnani jivasya harihi svena abedamaha iti vachyam. So Shri Bhagavan is not saying that this jnani now has become me. No. The bhakta always remains the bhakta, Bhagavan always remains Bhagavan. Only then there is the love between them. The jnani himself has become Bhagavan, then where is the question of love? Love means there should be two people, right? There should be the person who is loved and the person who is loving. And both love each other. So both are the loved and both are loving. That person become one person, then there is no love. So Svena Abhedam, this Bheda is always there. Yani bhajatva asiddhehe bhajatam chaturvidya asiddher mokshe bhedavakya vyakopacha. So this is the same thing that I said just now. He says that if they merge with each other, then there is no question of saying he is very dear to me. That dearness will go away. Tasmat ati priyatvad eva tatra atma iti uktihi mama atma bhadrasena iti vat. He says this expression of he is my own self, he is my own Atma, is done in the sense of love. So much I love him that he's just like my own self. Mama Atma Bhadrasena. He's just giving a arbitrary example. He just says, take a person by name Bhadrasena. And suppose I like that person very much, I will say Mama Atma Bhadrasena itivat. So just like that, I may say I like that person. Rahul is just like my own self. I like Rahul so much. So in that sense, he's saying, Atma eva mana eva patam iti apare. Some people, he says, even interpret, some other commentators interpret that word Atma to mean the mind. Because the word Atma in Sanskrit also means mind, it means the body, it means intelligence. So depending on the context, you can interpret the Atma in different ways. And some commentators have interpreted this word Atma to mean the mind. That he is just like my own mind, my own thinking. But Baladeva's interpretation is the dearness, because he is matching it with the previous shloka where he says Atyartham Priyaha. So this Atma is coming out of that extreme feeling of affection for that person.
But still there is a bheda. Still there is a difference.
There is always a distinction between the Bhakta and Bhagavan in terms of identity.
Contrary to what Shankaracharya.
Contrary to what Shankara is saying, or Advaita is saying. So this Bheda is the basis for Abhedatva. So Baladeva's philosophy and the philosophy of Chaitanya, in the line in which Baladeva comes, is that the Bheda is the basis for Abheda. There is also Abheda between the Jivatma and Bhagavan. The Abhedatva comes in the properties. Just like Bhagavan has got Chitta, he's got Chetanata or consciousness. So the Jivatma also has consciousness. So the sun, Surya and Suryamsha or Surya Kiran, the ray of the sun. So these have oneness between them. Suryamsha has oneness with the Surya. At the same time, the Suryamsha is not the Surya. And the Surya is not merely made up of its Amshas or its Kiranas. The Surya and Kiranas are actually distinct from each other. At the same time, there is some oneness between them because the Amsha, after all, comes from the Surya. So he discusses very elaborately in his Bhashya, in the Govinda Bhashya, about how this oneness and difference should be understood together. So he doesn't reject Advaita in toto. He accepts the oneness from Advaita, but he accepts it after rejecting the arguments for oneness that Advaita gives. Like there are elaborate arguments in Advaita philosophy for explaining Advaitatva. It's called Parichedavad and Pratibhimbavad. And these things I will cover in a later class and how they refute these arguments. So even though all the four of them are large-hearted and generous, I consider the Jnani to be my own self, since he is firmly situated in my service and considers no objective superior to me. And after saying this, Sri Bhagavan then says, Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Vasudevaha sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. So here I've taken the commentary of Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, Sarartha Varshini. Both are in tandem actually, but some places I felt explaining through this commentary makes it even more clear. Nanu mam eva anuttamam gati mastitaha iti brushe ataha sa jnani bhaktaha tvam eva prapnoti. Kintu kiyatah samayad anantaram sa jnani bhaktyadhikari bhavati ityataha aha bahunam iti. So he's saying that, okay, now we have said that this jnani, he comes to me, he's very affectionate to me. But how long does it take for somebody to become like that? Because earlier you had said, Manushyanam sahusreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye, yatataamapi siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvata. That is, among thousands of men, only one endeavors for perfection. And among thousands of those who endeavor for perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So now you're talking about the jnani. So how long does it take for someone to become the jnani? So he says, Bahunam janmanamante. At the end of many, many births, one achieves this status of being a jnani or a jnanavan. And what is that jnana? What is the essence of that jnana? Is this Vasudevaha sarvamiti. Sarvatra Vasudeva darshi jnanavan. Bahunam janmanamante mam prapadyate. So at the end of many, many births of doing sadhana bhakti, one realizes that Vasudeva, that son of Vasudeva, Krishna, he is everything. Vasudeva sarvamiti. Sarvatra Vasudeva darshi. He sees Vasudeva everywhere. Okay? So Bahunam janmanamante. Tadrisha sadhuhu yadrichika sangavashat mat prapattim prapnoti. Such a jnani bhakto mahatma sustira chittaha sudurlabha. Such a person is extremely rare. And he gets this by yadrichika. Yadrichika means you cannot logically explain it. Yadrichika is something that just happens. Okay, it just happens, or it is just unexplainable, or you can't assign a definite cause to it. Suddenly, he gets inspired, he gets attracted to Krishna. And that is a result of something that he might have done, or it's a result of some kripa of some bhakta on him. And this suddenly comes, and he then feels attracted to associate with other bhaktas who are doing bhakti. And he wants to hear more and more, akanksha. It's called akanksha, the feeling that I want to know more, I want to know more. He gets curious, he gets attracted more and more towards Krishna. And this Jnani Bhakto Mahatma Sustira Chitta, then his mind gets fixed with Krishna. And such a person is Sudurlabha, is very, very rare. And he's also citing that Manushyanam Sahasreshu iti maduktehe. Aikantika bhaktastu kimuta iti sa tu ati sudurlabha eva iti bhavaha. So this is about Pradhani Bhuta Bhakta, second category. What about the Aikantika Bhakta, the Kevala Bhakta? He says, Vishwanath Chakravarti says, that's even more rare. Such a person who is not even looking for mukti, he just wants to perform bhakti for the sake of bhakti. He likes the sweetness of bhakti, and that is a very, very rare person. So at the end of several births, one who has gained true knowledge, jnanavan, that I, Vasudeva, Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, is everything, takes refuge in me. Such a great personality is extremely rare. So today I thought I will narrate another story from the Bhagavatam. Like last time, we heard about the story of Dhruva, a very beautiful narrative of how Dhruva, he goes and finds Vishnu and then forgets about what he really came for. So here is a story of another personality, very great personality, who became very dear to Vishnu, who was very dear to Vishnu. His name is Ambarisha. So Ambarisha is a king in the Surya Vamsha. Surya Vamsha is the Vamsha in which Rama appeared, right? So Ambarisha, I think, is an ancestor of Ramachandra. So Ambarisha was a bhakta. And the story is narrated in the Navama Skanda of Bhagavata. I have the Gita Press copy of Bhagavata. I've managed to get a PDF of this. It's available. If you Google on this, you will find it. So I located the story here. And so I've now gone to the portion of where Ambarisha's Katha is described. So Ambarisha was just like the kings of these major emperors who were actually Chakravartis, means they ruled large parts of the earth. So practically the entire earth was under their control. All other kings were inferior to them. Maybe something like today we talk about the president of the United States. He has so much power that he has say in almost everything that happens in the world, right? So these kings were like that. So Ambarish was in that dynasty, and he was very, very powerful as a Kshatriya. But he had absolutely no interest or no, he was just not carried away by the material power that he had, the wealth that he had, because he was completely devoted to Krishna. So what was his sadhana like? Okay, so here we hear from the Navama Skanda. This is the 4th chapter of the Navama Skanda of the Bhagavatam. Vasudeva Bhagavati tad bhakteshu sadhushu prapto bhavam param vishvam yena idam loshtavat smritam. Because of his complete bhakti and his absorption in Vishnu, in Krishna, and in the sadhus who are devoted to Vishnu, in that bhav, he considered this entire earth, although he was the emperor, just loshtavat, like a lump of clay. He had only that much interest in it, as much interest as one would have on a lump of clay, right? He did his duties, but at the same time, he was completely detached from. That's the meaning of detachment. Okay. So then how was his sadhana like? What did his sadhana include? It says, this very famous portion from the Bhagavatam. It says, Savai Manaha Krishna Padara Vindayoho. His mind, Manaha, Krishna Padara Vindayoho, were always thinking of, his mind was always thinking about the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna Pada Aravinda. Aravinda means lotus, the lotus feet of Krishna. Vachamsi Vaikuntha Gunanu Varnane. His voice or words were used for describing the qualities of Vishnu. Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means it's the name of Vishnu. Gunanu Varnane. Always used in talking about Vishnu. Karau, Harer Mandira Marjanadishu. His hands were used to clean the temple of Vishnu. He would go to the temple and clean the temple. That's what he would use his hands for. Shrutim Chakara Achyuta Satkatodaya. He used his ears for hearing the Achyuta Satkatodaya, the nectarian stories of Vishnu, or narratives of Vishnu. Mukunda Lingalaya Darshane Drishav. So he used his eyes, the 2 eyes, for having darshan of the deity of Mukunda, of Krishna. Tadbhritya Gatra Sparshenga Sangamam. His body and his physical movement was among the people who were serving Vishnu. And he used his body for that purpose, in that manner. So he would use his sense of touch. The sense of touch is being spoken about. He would touch the bodies of others when he was working with them. Granam chatat pada saroja saurabe. He used his nose, granam, the sense of smell. Tat pada saroja saurabe, to smell the flowers which had been offered to the feet of Vishnu, the deity of the feet of the deity of Vishnu. Shrimat tulasya rasanam tadarpite. He used his tongue to taste the prasadam that had been offered with tulasi. Tulasya saha means when we offer food to Vishnu, we offer it with tulasi. So along with the tulasi, the food is taken as prasadam. So he used his tongue to taste the prasadam offered to Vishnu. And then Padau Hare Kshetra Padanu Sarpane. He used his feet to walk to the pilgrimage places. He would go on pilgrimage Padayatra to the pilgrimage place where Hari is remembered, like Tirupati or Vrindavan, wherever. Shiro Hrishikesha Padabi Vandani. He used his head to offer pranam, to Dandavat pranam to Vishnu. Hrishikesha Padabi Vandani, at the feet of Vishnu. Kamam cha dasya, nato kama kamyaya. He used his desires. This is the meaning of Yukta Vairagya. We've heard this word before, right? Yukta Vairagya means when you have a desire to enjoy in some manner, then use that in a manner, dovetail it towards the service of Vishnu. Okay, for example, if you have a desire to eat tasty food, then eat prasadam, which is offered to Vishnu. Right? If you have a desire to travel somewhere and you're bored of staying in one place, then travel to a place where you can, it'll take you closer to Vishnu. Travel to a pilgrimage place, visit temples, etc. It's called Yukta Vairagya. So Kamam cha dasya natu kama kamyaya. Used his desires, whatever desires came, he somehow diverted them towards connecting with Vishnu. Yatha uttama shloka janashrayaratihi. Just like the attraction of the people who are attached to Uttama Shloka. Uttama Shloka is the name of Vishnu. Just like people who are attached to Vishnu, their rati in Vishnu would make them do. He was like that. Okay, that's what it describes. So such a person, Ambarisha, was living in this manner. And the story goes on. There's so many shlokas here, so I won't go into all of them for want of time. But it describes how he was so so devoted, and his duties, he did his duties as a king perfectly. So the population was very happy with him, and they also followed his devotion to Vishnu, rubbed off on them too. And they also became bhaktas. They also adopted, because once you see a great leader doing something, then you see that his qualities I also want to adopt. He's so happy, he's so successful. So let me also become like him. So he inspired so many people as he was living this life. Now, as the narrative goes forward, Ambarisha once takes a fast, performs the Ekadashi Vrata for 1 year. When you say 1 year, what it means is in 1 year, 24 times Ekadashi comes in a normal year, because in each month, 2 times it comes, in the Shukla Paksha once, in the Krishna Paksha once, and there are 12 months in a year. And in a year in which there is Adhik Mas, like for example, currently there is Adhik Mas in this year, in the current lunar year. So next month there will be Adhik Mas. It's called the Shravana Mas this year. So in the Adhik Mas, there are 26 times Ekadashi, because 1 more month is there. So, so doing all those Ekadashis sincerely with following some particular vrata in some particular manner in which Ekadashi is meant to be done, he reached the end of this vrata in the month of Kartik. In the month of Kartik, the last of the Ekadashi vratas was held, and during which he had traveled to Vrindavan. Again, it's coincidentally the same place which we mentioned last time, Madhuvan. Madhuvan is the place where Dhruva went to do his tapasya, and Ambarisha also went to Madhuvan in Vrindavan on the banks of Yamuna, the river Yamuna, and he performed his Ekadashi Vrata there. So at the end of 3 days of non-stop fasting without water, okay, Nirjala Vrata, he was about to break his Vrata. Okay, now there's a concept in breaking Vrata. When you're observing a Vrata of any kind, whether it's Ekadashi or any other Vrata, there is a particular time called as a Paran time. Paran means where you break the Vrata following some principles, you chant some mantras, you do some puja, and then you meditate upon that deity whom you are trying to please with this, and then you consume water and food and so on after that. Okay, so everything was ready for doing the Paran. Now that Paran time is considered very important, because it is said that if you don't do the breaking of the Vrata in the Paran time, in that given time, then that Vrata is nothing. I mean, it's like not doing the Vrata at all. There will be no benefit of doing the Vrata, or it's considered to be a wrong way to do the Vrata. So it becomes an aparat. Okay, so you have to break the fast at that point of time. So everything was prepared, and Ambarish, being an emperor, he was not doing it alone. He was doing it along with his ministers and the other Brahmanas who were helping him observe that Vrata. So they prepared the meal and the water and everything to break the fast. And exactly at that point of time, the great Durvasa Muni entered the arena where he was doing this fast. And we all know how Durvasa Muni is a very strict Brahmana, right? He's very strict in his principles. And Durvasa Muni, of course, is a very great sage. He's a Brahma Jnani. He's a Jnani who has realized the Brahma. And he's always contemplating on the Brahma. He's a Guni Bhuta Bhakta in that sense. He doesn't have the bhakti that Ambarisha has. So he uses bhakti as a means to realize Brahma and keep that connection with Brahma. So he contemplates on Brahma. And he is also known to be a very sattvic Brahmana. He's very powerful. His sattva is very high. So wherever he goes, he tells people about how to practice dharma. He ensures that dharma is observed wherever he follows, and he tells people how to follow it strictly. Okay? So now as Durvasa walks into the arena of Ambarish Maharaj, Ambarisha gets up and offers his respects to him. He's after all a king, and this is a Brahmana, a sage walking in. He offers his respects to him. He worships him, makes him sit. And then he says, "Can I serve you food? After you take your food, I will take my food." That's also Atithi Seva, right? Any Atithi who comes, you first serve the Atithi and then you take your food and so on. So when all this happens, Durvasa says that, yes, I will have food, but first I have to take my bath and I have to do my puja, and then I will come. So Ambarisha, along with all his disciples, he goes to Yamuna and he takes a dip in the Yamuna, he does his Brahma Dhyan, and then he comes back. Now, in the period that happens, the Paran time is about to get over. The Paran time has just started when Durvasa came, but all this happened and now it's almost over. So Ambarisha does not know what to do. He's panicking. So he looks at his ministers and he says, "With your permission, can I do what the Shastra tells me to do?" The Shastra says that taking water, taking a drop of water is enough to break a fast. and at the same time, it's considered as not breaking a fast. It can be interpreted in both ways. Shastra says that water can be used to break a fast, and merely consuming water when an atithi has not yet been served is also equivalent to not taking food. And so, with your permission, can I do that? Immediately the Brahmanas say, yes, you have spoken correctly, please do it. So he takes the water. And with that, he is very happy. He says, now I have completed the fast, and now I can wait for Durvasa as long as he takes, no problem. After he comes, I will serve him, and then I will have food. So after some time, Durvasa comes back, and Ambarisha again offers his respect to him. And as Durvasa comes near Ambarisha, by his mystic power, because he's very sattvic, he's very powerful, he can see that Ambarisha has already broken the fast. So instantly, Durvasa loses his temper. And he begins to shout at Ambarish in the assembly, in the front of all the ministers and Brahmanas. He says, look at this papi. This person is so much in a materialistic, he's such a samsari. His mind is so much absorbed in his material enjoyment that he could not even wait for his atithi to come back and have food. What a man this guy is. And he doesn't deserve to live anymore. So in that fit of temper, Durvasa reaches out to his own hair, his jata, and he pulls out a clump of hair and he dashes it on the ground. And when he does that, instantly a very fiery creature is created. And that fiery creature is so frightening to look at. That fiery creature starts walking towards Ambarisha to consume him immediately and kill him. And at that point of time, it is said, it's described in the Bhagavatam, that the whole earth was shaking. That fiery creature was so big and it was so frightening to look at. It was so heavy that the whole earth began to shake. So then what happened? So it is described that Ambarisha, who was just standing there, waiting for Durvasa to take his thing. All this happened in an instant of time. So Ambarisha was completely unmoved by this. He experienced absolutely no fear. He was just watching that creature come towards him. And then the Bhagavatam goes on to describe that just when the creature was about to touch Ambarisha, suddenly from somewhere, a very fiery disc appeared. And in the next instant, that disc burnt that creature to ashes. That was the Sudarshan Chakra of Vishnu. So the Sudarshan Chakra, after burning that creature to ashes, turned around and started going towards Durvasa. So Durvasa suddenly realized that the story has turned around. The story has now become upside down. So the moment he realizes that the Sudarshan Chakra is now behind me, my creature is no longer existing. So he turns around and starts running away from there. He runs away because he's very powerful, so he can go anywhere he wants. So he moves away from that spot as quickly as he can. And he turns around to see that the Sudarshan Chakra is just at his neck, is about to chop his neck off. The Sudarshan Chakra does not kill him. It just goes behind him. It allows him to run and it just goes behind him. It wants him to run. So it goes behind him and he's running and he's moving. He's using his mystic powers to go as fast as possible. And he goes, and out of extreme fear, he doesn't know what to do. So he thinks that now, I don't know who will protect me. Let me go to the most powerful person in this universe, which is Lord Brahma. So he goes to Brahmaloka. And he goes to Brahmaloka and he enters, and because of his power, he can directly go and see Brahma. So he goes and falls at the feet of Brahma. He says to Brahma that, look, I don't know what happened. I was trying to teach him something, this fellow. And suddenly I find that Vishnu Sudarshan Chakra is chasing me. So you are the most powerful person in this universe. You are the source of all the jivatmas here. So please protect me. So when Brahma sees this, Brahma understands what has happened. So he replies, he says that, look, I'm nobody. I'm just a small jivatma like you. And, I'm subject to birth and death like any other jivatma. And there's nothing I can do when something like the Sudarshan Chakra comes. So please go away from here. Look for somebody more powerful than me. So knowing that Brahma cannot help him, Ambarisha immediately goes away from there and he goes to Kailash Parvat. He goes to Shiva. And he falls at the feet of Shiva and he offers his prayers. He says, please protect me. The Sudarshan Chakra is not leaving me. And he finds the same response coming from Shiva. Shiva says that, look, this belongs to Vishnu. And in front of him, I am also an Amsha of Vishnu, and I can't do anything. The only person who can protect you now is Vishnu himself. Please go to him and request him to withdraw his chakra from here. So Durvasa leaves there, and because of his power, he is able to enter Vaikuntha. He is able to enter that part of Vaikuntha which is inside this universe, where Vishnu resides with Lakshmi. And he goes straight to Vishnu, and he falls at the feet of Vishnu. And he prays to Vishnu. He says that, look, Bhagavan, I have committed a very serious offense against your bhakta. I did not realize that I was committing this offense. So please pardon me. Please take back this Sudarshan Chakra and save my life. So what does Vishnu do? Now, this part of the story I will read out from here. It's very interesting. And this is where I want to draw your attention back to the 3 shlokas of Bhagavad-Gita, which we have been reading today. So all this is now describing what we just heard. And here Shiva is telling him to go to Vishnu. And now he has gone to Vishnu. And what does Vishnu reply when Ambarisha prays to him? Shri Bhagavan Vacha. You can read here. He says, Aham bhakta paradhino aswatantra eva dvija sadhubir grasta hridayo bhaktaihi bhakta janapriyaha. He says, look, I wish I could help you, but you must understand now that Aham bhakta paradhino. I am not independent. I am dependent on somebody. And who's that? My bhakta. I am bhakta paradhina. I am dependent on my own bhakta. He aswatantra eva dvijaha. I am just like somebody who has no independence. Aswatantra eva. Patantra means independent, right? Aswatantra means no independent. Person with no independence. Aswatantra eva. Eva means like. So I'm just like a person who has no independence. Sadhubhihi krasta hridayaha. I am somebody whose heart has been snatched away by the sadhu. Sadhu means his bhakta. Who is a sadhu? Sadhubhihi bhaktaihi. By my bhakta, my heart has been snatched away. Bhakta janapriyaha. I am very dear to my bhakta, and my bhakta is very dear to me. So it's exactly what we heard in the Bhagavad-Gita. We see in the Bhagavatam also. He says, Naham atmanam ashase mad bhaktaihi sadhu birvina. Naham atmanam ashase. I don't desire my own self. Mad bhaktaihi sadhu birvina. Without the presence of my bhakta, who is a sadhu. Shriyam cha atyantikim brahmanya yesham gatiraham para. The bhakta for whom I am the supreme destination. Yesham gatiraham para. Shriyam cha, even my own Lakshmi, my own wife Lakshmi, I don't desire so much. I don't want her so much as I want my bhakta's company. Ye daragara putraptan pranan vittamimam param hitva mam sharanam yataha katam stam styaktum utsahe. It says, ye, those sadhus whom I am talking about, they are people who Dara means wife. Dara, Agara means the house or residence. Putra, son. Aptan, teachers. Pranan means their own pranavayu, their own life. Vittam, wealth. Imam, param. All these things. Hitva, giving up all of these things. Mam sharanam yataha. They have come to my refuge. How can I? Katham tan styaktum utsahe. How can I ever abandon them? He asks this to Durvasa. So he says, I have absolutely no power to solve this problem for you. This Sudarshan Chakra is chasing you, not because I have asked it to chase you. It is chasing you, not because of my order. It is just come there. Mayi nirbhaddha hridayaha sadavaha samadarshanaha vashi kurvanti mam bhaktya satstriyaha satpathim yatha. Says, me, Mayi nirbhaddha hridayaha, those whose hearts are completely locked inside me, nirbhaddha, bound inside me, samadarshanaha, those who look at others with equality, vashi kurvanti mam bhaktya, they have arrested me completely under their control, just like a satstri. Satstri means a pativrata. We heard about pativrata in a previous session. Satstriyaha satpatim yatha. A satstri, a very chaste woman, how she manages to control her husband. Satpatim, a person, Satpati is a husband with good qualities. Husband who is a dharmic husband is controlled by a dharmic wife. In the same manner, these bhaktas, they completely control me. Mat sevaya pratitam cha salokyadi chatushayam nechanti sevaya purnaha kuto anyat kala vidhutam. He says, they are so much engrossed in my seva, they want only my seva. And they reject salokyadi chatushtayam, these four types of mukti: salokya, samipya, sarshti, and sarupya. We've spoken about these four types of mukti, which bhaktas aim for. The Padani Bhuta bhaktas aim for this. But this bhakta is not even aiming for that. Even that they don't want. Nechinti sevaya purnaha, they are filled with my seva. So then he says, sadhavo hridayam mahyam, sadhunam hridayam tu aham. Mad anyat tena jananti naham tebhyo managapi. So the sadhu is my heart, and I am the sadhu's heart. And therefore, we don't know anybody else. Therefore, I can't do anything in this particular situation. It says, upayam kathaishyami. Next. So I'm going to now give you a solution, an idea what you can possibly do. Okay, so what is the solution? He tells to Durvasa. So he says that I don't have any power. The only person who has the power to solve this problem is that person whom you offended. That is Ambarisha himself. So please go right back to Ambarisha and beg his forgiveness. If he forgives you, then the Sudarshan Chakra will stop troubling you. Otherwise, there is no hope for you. So after hearing that, the story goes on. It's more elaborate. So I won't again go into all the shlokas. So Durvasa immediately heads back to the place Madhuvan, where Ambarisha is waiting for him. And Ambarisha now has broken his fast. He has done his paran with the drop of water, and he is no longer going to have anything. He is just waiting for Durvasa to come. He's just, overwhelmed with the situation in the sense that he did not expect that all these things will happen, but never happened. But he's not going to deviate from the commitment that he has, that I will first feed Durvasa and then I will eat. So suddenly Durvasa comes back along with the Sudarshan Chakra at his neck. So the Sudarshan Chakra has not killed him. It only wants to chase him, right? Chakra also is very clever. It's not its intention to kill the sadhu, but kill this guy. It's only to teach him a lesson. So it's chasing him. It wants to put the fear of God in him, right? That's exactly what has happened. So he comes back there, and Durvasa comes and falls at the feet of Ambarisha. He says that, please forgive me. And what does Ambarisha do? Ambarisha now, looking at this, he is extremely embarrassed. So he lifts him up and he says that, please don't do this. I'm always your servant. I don't deserve to be given respect by you. You are a great sage. So please bless me that I will, whatever offense I have committed to you, please bless me that I will be free from it. So Durvasa says that I did not know what I was doing. I lost my temper and I was trying to kill you. So when they have had this conversation, then Ambarisha offers his prayers to Sudarshan Chakra. He says that, please leave him. He did not know what he was doing. Please let him go. And then the Sudarshan Chakra vanishes from there. So after that, the story concludes by Durvasa playing his role as a sadhu, and he accepts the hospitality of Ambarisha. He first has his food, and then Ambarisha has his food. And the story ends on a happy note. So this story, if you relate back to what we were hearing today from the Gita, says that the sadhu is extremely dear to me. And this story essentially illustrates how the bhakta, by virtue of that quality of sacrificing everything in that pure service of God, of pure service of Krishna, manages to, become so powerful that he never anticipated, or he never wanted that power. Although he doesn't want that power is given to him. So now, closely connected to this is in the Bhagavad-Gita itself, in the 12th chapter, which is called Bhakti Yoga, where Sri Bhagavan says, what exactly is it that makes the bhakta very dear to him? Why does he feel so indebted to the bhakta? Why does he feel so attracted to the bhakta? In the 12th chapter of the Gita, it is described in the last 7 shlokas. These are not exactly the last 7. These are 7 among the last 8. The 8th shloka is the 20th shloka of the 12th chapter, which is the last shloka of the 12th chapter. So you can say from the 13th shloka to the 19th shloka. Okay, the penultimate 7 shlokas of the 12th chapter of Gita. Okay, that's the 7 before the last shloka. So in these 7 shlokas, Sri Bhagavan explains why the bhakta is very dear to him by listing the qualities of the bhakta that he finds very attractive. So what are those qualities? Now, actually, there are many, many qualities. So what I did was I sat and pulled them out, extracted them, and I found in my count, 34 qualities were listed. And these 34, they begin with being adveshta. For example, adveshta means one who has no dvesh towards others, who has no malice or hatred towards others. And when he says others, particularly, it means those who have hatred towards oneself. Okay, if you don't have hatred towards anybody in general, there's nothing great in it, right? Most of us don't hate others in general, right? But greatness comes when you don't have hatred towards the person who hates you. When somebody wants to kill you, when somebody wants to harm you, towards such a person, if you don't have any hatred. Okay, think of Yudhishthira, think of Arjuna, right? Yudhishthira was always threatened by Duryodhana. Duryodhana and his brothers wanted to finish off the Pandavas so many times they tried. But in the mind of Yudhishthira, there was never a thought that I should harm them. Never had any hatred towards them, right? This is the same quality in Ambarisha today, in today's story. Ambarisha had no thought that Durvasa should be harmed. The Sudarshan Chakra appears from somewhere unanticipatedly and tries to kill him or just frightens him. Similarly, think of Prahlad. We heard about Prahlad 2 sessions back. Think of Prahlad. So all the bhaktas have this supreme quality of adveshta. This is where bhakti begins. Okay, then Sri Bhagavan lists so many other qualities: maitraha, karunaha, nirmamaha, nirahankaraha, samadukka sukhaha, and so on. And I've listed and then also given the English translation from these commentaries. So the commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti and Baladev Vidyabhushana elaborate on the meaning of these terms. I've explained them. And if anybody wants this file, you can just send me an email and I'll be happy to share this file with you. Okay, there are many, many qualities and each of them is very interesting. You can see that to some extent, maybe we have some of these qualities in us. Sometimes we experience them. But bhakti essentially means this. Bhakti is not just about, sitting and doing bhajan or shedding tears. It's consciously developing these qualities, consciously contemplating within oneself, doing these qualities and developing these qualities and engaging in activities which are in accordance with what gives pleasure to Bhagavan. That is bhakti. I'll be happy to share this and you can send me. I don't want to spam, so I won't be just sending it like that. If you write to me, I will share it with you. So as we go forward now, we've covered today 3 shlokas from the Gita. Here in the 7th chapter, we have done shlokas 17 to 19. And in the next class, we will start from the 20th shloka, where onwards, Sri Bhagavan will tell more about the distinction between himself and the other devas. He will say that people approach the other devas because they want some desires to be fulfilled. But they're actually foolish people. He literally says that. And he says, they don't know that I'm the one who's actually giving everything. Everything comes from me. He makes that very bold statement. But he says that I'm the one who also gives them that Shraddha. I don't force them to worship me. If they are attracted to some other deity, I allow them to worship that deity. But you should know that I am the one who even gives that Shraddha towards that deity. Okay, so we will cover all these things in more detail in the next session. Good. I've taken a lot of time today, so any questions? Yes, Sarthak. Sarthak is back with his questions.
Sir, so we discussed about the story of Ambarish and we saw that he was a great bhakta.
Yeah.
And he always devoted his time, all of his time towards activities in bhakti. And not just him, even his ministers accompanied him.
Yes.
That's what he said. Now, sir, earlier we had discussed that for someone to take up Vairagi, first you have to be eligible for that. You have to perform Karma Jnana Yoga. Then only you are eligible to actually stop doing your materialistic duties. Now, if I talk about myself, so as of now, I might not have any responsibilities, but later in my life, I must serve my parents, I must serve my family. So
yes.
I have to follow some materialistic activities for my self-sustenance.
Yes.
But here in this case, he is a king. He just doesn't have to think about himself, but he has to take care of his entire subjects, of his entire kingdom.
Yes.
So in that case, I mean, how can someone devote all time and energy towards bhakti? And he's not also delegating the stuff. I mean, all his ministers are also following him. Then what about the day-to-day governance? And basically, what about the things that must be done? If you are completely into bhakti or thinking all about Vishnu, okay, you might be experiencing eternal bliss. But what about the things that are not being done, especially when you are a leader? When Amrish is a leader, he is an emperor. So many people will be affected by this. So
Yes.
what is your take?
So this question arises, it's a very good question actually, but it comes to mind because of the understanding that bhakti requires us to do only those things which are away from our normal responsibility and duties, right? But I have also explained earlier that bhakti is not just that. Broadly speaking, to clarify your question, to clearly answer your question, bhakti involves, very broadly speaking, two types of activities. One are called the bhakti sadhana activities, the angas of bhakti. Like, for example, we heard in the case of Ambarisha, he was using his feet to go to the temple, using his eyes to have darshan of the deity, using his tongue to taste prasadam, etc. Or you can say, doing the japa of the holy name, which is the moola activity, which is the most fundamental activity of bhakti, japa, harinama japa. Now, all these activities are called the angas of bhakti. Okay, now the question naturally comes, if I'm doing only these activities, then how will I conduct my life? How will I live? How will I maintain my family? What about my duties towards my parents, etc.? Now, like I said, this is only one type of activity for a bhakta. But all bhaktas also live their normal life like anybody else. Just like the gopis in Vrindavan. You see, the gopis in Vrindavan, they were not only sitting and doing japa. In fact, we don't even hear about them doing japa at all. Right? What were they doing? They were doing their normal activities that gopis should do. They were taking care of the go. They were doing farming, or they were serving their husbands, whatever they are supposed to do, as a normal woman should do. Right? So similarly, if you look at Yudhishthira, when he became the Chakravarti, two times, once before going to Vanavas and then after the Yudhishthira, the Kurukshetra Yuddha also, again became the emperor. What was he doing? He was doing all his regular duties, right? So doing all your duties very sincerely in the way in which they should be done is very much a part of bhakti. Okay, but what is different between then a bhakta and a abhakta, person who is not doing bhakti? The difference is in the mentality. So in the mind of the bhakta, the motivation to do your duty sincerely is the pleasure of Krishna. The motivation comes from there, that if I do my work sincerely, so all the time the bhakta has, Krishna will be happy if I do it this way. Vishnu will be, this is the way that a Vishnu bhakta does things. This kind of thought, doing things with fairness, with kindness, with taking into consideration all that we talk about ethics today is realized in its perfection only when you become a bhakta. I mean, I'm not saying this because I'm advocating bhakti, but if you understand these qualities, for example, if you go through that word file that I've created, those 34 qualities, if somebody cultivates them, you will not be able to find out, you will not be able to point out something more ethical than that. Ethics will be perfect in such a person. So we're talking about CSR and ethics and everything in big courses here, big words are used, big conferences are being held. It's all there in the Gita, right?
The person will not be unethical if he has those qualities.
Yes, because he doesn't need to be. He doesn't have anything. Here, Ambarisha has no fear. He has no fear of anything. So ethics, unethicality comes when you have the fear of losing something, when you have the fear of something compromised in your personal gain. When your swarth is compromised, then you will do something unethical, right? Correct, no? Otherwise, why would anybody do anything unethical? Why will they harm other person if there is nothing for them to gain in doing so? But for the bhakta, there is nothing to gain at all, because already he has got the highest thing. In the bhakta's mind, the connection with Krishna that he has, for example, even an activity like doing japa gives so much happiness to him that he doesn't want anything else. He doesn't feel the need for it. It is not that he has lost taste in life. It's that he has got so much taste in his own life as a bhakta, in the consciousness of bhakti. He doesn't feel the need for anything else. And therefore, because of that reason, his responsibilities are conducted much better than they would be otherwise. He does everything very sincerely. That is why Ambarisha was Bhagavatam describes that he was so liked by his subjects.
So what I understand is that in this story, Ambarisha might be a great bhakta, but he did not give up on his princely or kingly duties.
Yes.
So he did not abandon those.
Yes. Absolutely. So Sarthak will not abandon his responsibilities as a bhakta. Suppose you decide to take bhakti, you or any other student will not abandon your responsibility. You will take up your job or become an entrepreneur, have your own company. You will do whatever others do, but you will do them in an even better manner, because you will not compromise on the quality of your work, quality of your service. And you will think of others in the right way. You will not have any sense of vengeance towards others. You see, so you will not get into trouble with anyone. Nobody will trouble you. One of the qualities that Sri Bhagavan says here among these 34 qualities is Yasmat na udvijate loko, lokan na udvijate chayaha. You look here, this quality number 13 and 14. Yasmat na udvijate lokaha, lokat na udvijate chayaha. By whom no one is troubled, one who lives his life in such a manner that nobody is troubled by them. He is very sensitive to what can be troublesome to another person. So whether it's about the way you send an email, whether the way you write an email, or whether it's about the way you conduct a meeting, or whether it's about a decision that you take, you will not trouble anybody. Of course, when people do wrong, then you have to punish them. That's also a part of your duty. That doesn't go against this. The person who has done wrong says, "You're troubling me." That's not troubling them. You're giving them what they deserve.
Yes.
So that is being dutiful.
Sir, I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
But I'll ask that later regarding this. Sir, I had a different question also.
Okay.
Sir, in one of the shlokas, you refuted Advaita Vedanta. And the logic was that you cannot love someone, you cannot, if you are loving, so it would be two people.
Yes.
Someone loves the other. But again, quoting Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya, we have his Geet Bhagavad-gi, and again it is a love song. It is about bhakti, even though he was an Advaitavadi.
So he revealed,
how
correct.
do we reconcile?
Exactly. So which means actually in his mind also Advaita was not the philosophy he wanted to give. There's a purpose why he gave Advaita. See, he's actually Shiva. We accept Shankara as an incarnation of Shiva. And Shiva appears there his motive was to drive out Buddhism. The Buddhist philosophy, atheistic philosophy was the dominant philosophy at that time. Buddhism is an atheistic philosophy, right? So Shankara, it is said, appeared to basically refute Buddha's philosophy and bring back the Shastra, Veda, as the predominant philosophy.
But sir, again, he was the jnani, or say bhakti wasn't his end goal. His end goal was mukti.
Yeah,
and he was using bhakti for that.
Yes.
But here in our discussions, we follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who says that bhakti, mukti is a side product, but bhakti is the end goal.
So what is called as Guni Bhuta Bhakti in today's framework? Guni Bhuta Bhakti is what Shankara showed in front. But no, Shankara's Bhakti, or what the Advaitis follow, is more of Guni Bhuta Bhakti, where Bhakti is used as an element to get mukti. Mukti is the main goal. Mukti is what they are looking for through jnana. They consider themselves as jnana yogis. Right? If you look at a sincere Advaiti follower, you think about jnana as the supreme thing. And bhakti is only to ensure that the process flows through smoothly. So bhakti is used in a guni sense, in a very secondary sense. But yes, in Bhaja Govindam and some of the other stotras that he has composed, bhakti stotras, he reveals that. He says that unless you do bhakti to Govinda, there is no question of mukti. That especially Bhaja Govindam is a very revealing song of bhakti. Yes.
Sir, last question. Sir, we talked about Durvasa also, Rishi Durvasa.
Yes.
But we know that he has lots of powers, lots of mystic powers, and he is in the Sattva, and he is a Brahman. But sir, again, how can someone who is liberated have so much of anger?
So he is not liberated as yet. He's in a high stage of Sattva. He doesn't have that realization that will actually give him liberation. See, compared to Narada Muni, you take Narada, for example, he's also a sage like Durvasa, right? Narada is Nitya Mukta. When Narada, for example, gives a curse sometimes, there are some narratives in which Narada gives a curse. For example, the two Ashwini Kumaras. who become trees. In Krishna Leela, Krishna actually pulls his grinding stone and the trees fall. And then the Ashwini Kumaras, they come out of that. That's because of a curse that Narada gave. But when Narada curses, it's not out of anger. There is no anger in it. Because he's a Nitya Mukta. He is not under the Trigunas. So his curse is done as a blessing. He says that you are now in a bad situation because they do some offense. They are actually, Narada is walking along and they're taking bath in a lake, and he's, they don't even stand up when he's passing by. They're playing with some girls in that lake, and they're involved in some very, very perverse mentality. So he wants to cure them. He wants to pull them out of that. So out of compassion, he gives them this curse. You will become trees, he says. They become trees. And then Krishna comes and pulls them out. And they are blessed by him. So Durvasa is not a liberated stage in the same sense as a Nitya Mukta. He's in a very high stage of Sattva, but not free from the gunas, three gunas.
But sir, again, someone who's located in the Sattva, shouldn't he or she be very peaceful? I mean,
yes,
but
he is. So Durvasa, by and large, is very peaceful. That's why he's so powerful. But
sir, he creates troubles wherever he is.
So even though, so this ahankar, so that's why. So even when somebody is in a very high stage of Sattva, this ahankar remains. The ahankar of Sattva, that power that Sattva gives, that I am powerful, I am a jnani, I am knowledgeable. Everybody should listen to me. I have a very clear thinking. That ahankar remains. That ahankar goes away only when you offer it at the feet of the Lord. Only when you offer it at the feet of Sri Bhagavan, the ahankar can be removed. Otherwise, it will not go. That is why bhakti plays a role. In bhakti, you offer your ahankar to him. He says that I am nobody. I'm an insignificant particle of dust. And only then mukti is possible. So very good question actually, because it shows how even a person with a very high level of sattva, so powerful, is still not a mukta, right? And that's why he has to run like that. He's feeling fear. Why is he running away from Sudarshan Chakra? You see, Ambarisha is standing there, that fiery demon is coming towards him. That fiery creature comes towards him. Ambarisha is unshaken. Okay, he just stands there. He's okay. If that fiery thing is going to burn me, fine. That's fine. Because already he is in his consciousness is already one with Vishnu, at the feet of Vishnu. So it doesn't matter to him. Similarly, Prahlad, the 5-year-old Prahlad, is so much absorbed in Krishna that the demons are trying to kill him in so many different ways. He doesn't protest. There's no protest. There's no objection to it. He's not afraid. He doesn't feel fear at all. It's just like, suppose, we are doing something and a small child, say 2-year-old child comes and throws something at us. Okay, sometimes children do that when they are playing. The child will pick up a toy and throw it at you, right? Do you get afraid? Do you feel afraid if that happens? You would not feel afraid, right? And as long as it's a child, you will not feel any fear towards it. You will only feel some love. Oh, so sweet it is. And you may catch the child and kiss the child or something. So a person, when he is in that stage of prema, is completely beyond the three gunas, and he has no fear in it. So you see the contrast between Ambarisha's mentality and Durvasa's mentality. Durvasa is filled with fear. Although he's so powerful, he's running away from there. He's running all over. He goes to Brahma, he goes to Shiva, he goes to Vishnu. But Ambarisha doesn't go to anyone. He's just standing there. And he's got the patience to wait for 1 year. 1 year passes when Durvasa does all this and comes back. Right? Although it happens in Durvasa's time scale, it happens instantly. But on the earth, where Ambarisha is observing this, 1 year passes by. And then in 1 year, he just drinks water. He just takes water and lives. He says, I'll eat food only after I feed my guest. He's not yet come back. Let him come back.
Because time dilation happens in Brahma.
Yes. Yes. The time is different in different parts of this universe. Yes. Yes.
Can I say something about Durvasa, Rishi?
Yes, please.
Based on what I have read, Durvasa is an amsha of Shankara. He's an amsha of Rudra. So, yes. So he is a personification of Krodha, Ahankara. So when we talk of the Krodha in Durvasa, it is not like the Krodha in ordinary Jivatmas like us. For us, Krodha is related to our selfish motive. if somebody hurts us, we get angry. If somebody insults us, we get angry. So it's related to our, body and our personality. But in the case of Durvasa, the Krodha appears when Shastras are not followed. So in the case of Ambarisha, Durvasa thinks that he has insulted the Shastra by insulting the Brahmana. Like the Atithi was not, he did not wait for the Atithi and he broke the fast. So he felt that the Shastra was not followed. So actually Durvasa character appears again and again in our Puranas only to show the superiority of the bhaktas. For example, if you take the Mahabharata, Durvasa comes twice. Once to bless Kunti with the special mantra. So he's happy with the service of Kunti and he blesses her. So there he comes and he has a very soft and kind attitude there. And again he comes during the Vanavasa of the Pandavas, where eventually Krishna comes and blesses them with the Akshaya Patra.
Yes.
So Durvasa character is not to be, what I have understood is not to be seen as a muktatma or a jivatma or something like that, at least right now. He has to be respected and worshipped as an Amsha of Rudra, who is one among the Trimurtis, who is also an Amsha of Bhagavan himself.
Yes, absolutely.
So just building upon.
We should keep that in mind. When we talk about somebody like Durvasa, we should keep the greatness of the personality also in mind.
Exactly.
So both aspects are there.
Yes.
That greatness does not mean mukti. At the same time, it should not be disrespected. We should not treat him like an ordinary person. Definitely is not an ordinary person. Yes.
Yes.
Like unlike many Bollywood songs, Ras Leela of Krishna is not really lust. It's something unlike a lot of Bollywood songs, the Ras Leela has nothing to do with lust and things like that. It's a very divine level of love where physicality doesn't matter at all.
Yes.
Sir,
Absolutely, Arnab. Yes, that's a good point. Yes.
Sir, adding on about Rishi Durvasa being an Amsha of Lord Shiva, even Lord Hanuman is said to be an Amsha of Lord Shiva. But here he does not have any krodha. I mean, you see the perfect bhakta in Hanuman. So he is completely devoted to Lord Ram. And throughout, he never loses his temper, even while fighting the enemies. So he has his head cool and very peaceful. So he is truly liberated.
Yes. Hanuman is very different. Yes. Hanuman's anger again is similar to the anger of somebody like, you can say, Arjuna, who fights in the war with the Kauravas, who engages the anger for the sake of dharma, right? Even Durvasa's anger, in some sense, like she was explaining, is for the sake of dharma. He invokes his anger, considering that dharma has not been followed in that. But he is not free from his own ahankar. That also comes into the picture, yes.
And sir, I've also read that Rishi Durvasa's anger and the stories are basically learning lessons for humanity.
Yes.
And just so that we learn, he becomes angry so that he is a learning lesson.
Yes.
And maybe that protecting dharma that he, in the first place, he did what he did for Rishi. So maybe that is not meant to be because he was doing that to her. So maybe that Kevala.
Yes.
So because he was doing Kevala Bhakti, so he was indifferent to following around or unfollowing because he is.
Yes, which Durvasa did not see. Yes, correct. Absolutely.
Rishi is like just absorbed in bhakti.
Yes.
So he's very high and following dharma.
Yes, samanya dharma. So that is why exactly. So this story also shows the taratamya between different types of dharma. How when somebody is following this kind of bhakti, he has broken something which is a very strict principle in samanya dharma, where without atiti seva, you are not supposed to take food. So that is a samanya dharma principle, and Durvasa is judging him on that. And Durvasa has invoked his anger because he broke that principle. Yeah, but he did that in the seva of Krishna, which was perfectly all right. And the way in which he broke it did not break any principle of bhakti, right? And therefore, he did not do anything wrong. So this also contrasts and shows how bhakti dharma is always superior. If you're doing something in bhakti dharma, even if that breaks the principle of samanya dharma, then you are perfectly situated. There's nothing wrong in it.
But so in the first place, why did you like, was it to give pleasure to Bhagavan?
Yes, because Ekadashi Vrata, you're supposed to, Ekadashi is done as a seva to Bhagavan, no?
So that time frame was being ended. So that
Yes.
he,
Yeah, so he had to do paran. Paran means consuming food of some type to break the vrata, breaking the fast.
And Durvasa was not ready yet.
So Durvasa knew that he had done the paran. Durvasa knew that he was observing Ekadashi. But Durvasa interpreted that vrata, Ekadashi vrata, and doing the paran from the lens of samanya dharma. From the lens of samanya dharma, you are not supposed to have your food before serving your atiti. Especially when you have already invited your atiti to go take bath and come back and then told him that after you have food, I will have food. This already has been said. So having said that, you did not follow it up. You did not keep your word. You've broken your promise in some sense. So that is a very serious offense from the samanya dharma perspective. And that needs to be punished. If Durvasa doesn't punish him, then he will get pap from some other side. It will be a big pap for him. So Durvasa curses him. Or in this particular case, he creates that fiery creature and wants to burn him down. Or maybe he wants Ambarisha to beg forgiveness. And then he will bring back that creature. So in the process, Durvasa is blind to the fact that he has actually followed bhakti. He's absorbed in bhakti and he's doing bhakti dharma, which is much superior to samanya dharma. So actually the Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam's objective is to establish bhakti. Bhakti is superior to samanya dharma and all other forms of dharma. In fact, in the Gita, the ending of Gita, the last shloka that Sri Bhagavan concludes the message with is Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja. Just give up all dharma, all forms of dharma, and just take my refuge, he says. Come to my refuge. So taking his refuge and following that Kevala Bhakti is the supreme form of dharma. All other dharma are inferior to that form of dharma. So this conflict between different forms of dharma is a fine analysis in the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam analyzes this. There are many, many other narratives also. Like, for example, the narrative of Ajamila. Ajamila's narrative. Yeah, we'll come to that narrative another time. There also the debate between the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas. The Yamadutas come to take away Ajamila to Yamaloka because he has lived a life of path. But at the same time, Vishnudutas come and they stop the Yamaduta. And they say that no, he has actually done bhakti. And they explain how. Because at the point of death, he chanted the name of Narayana. Even though the Narayana that he called out to was not that Narayana, it was his own son, Narayana. The Vishnudutas say, even then, because he chanted the name of Narayana, and in bhakti it is said that if you call the name of Narayana, all your pap is destroyed in an instant. So there is no pap in him now. So then there is a debate between them. And this debate is said to be the debate between two schools of philosophy in India. One is called Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta, which we are now studying. And the other is called Karma Mimamsa. Karma Mimamsa is about Samanya Dharma, Tato Dharma Jigyasa. So the Yamadutas represent the Karma Mimamsa philosophy, and the Vishnudutas, they represent the Uttara Mimamsa philosophy.
So Mimamsa is logic, reasoning.
Mimamsa is about the analysis of dharma. Mimamsa literally means analysis or deep investigation. So among the 6 darshanas of Veda, the 6 Vaidika darshanas, The two of them are this Vedanta, which is also called as Uttara Mimamsa, and Mimamsa, which is called Purva Mimamsa or Karma Mimamsa, or more generally just called as Mimamsa.
So the other four are?
The other four are Nyaya, Yoga, Vaisheshika, and Sankhya.
But sir, in Vedanta, we always talk about yoga.
Yeah, so these 6 schools, they draw upon each other's tenets here and there. For example, Nyaya is used by all the other schools. Nyaya is an epistemological school. It's epistemology. It tells you how to analyze different texts and so on.
Sir, I had heard.
Vaisheshika also.
Sir, I had heard one Advaita Vedanta scholar speak, and he said that all the Vedanta is a composite of all the other 5 schools, borrowing everything from there and
Vedanta borrows from other schools, including Sankhya, this Mimamsa also. It borrows in different places. Nyaya, Vaisheshika, it borrows. Yoga also, like in the 6th chapter, we saw elements of yoga being spoken about there. But the message of Vedanta is very distinct from the message of the other schools. It talks about Brahman and the difference between Jiva and Brahma, which Advaitis say is no difference. And the way in which the difference is understood, that differs from the different schools of Vedanta.
There was a question regarding this bhakti over that he asked, right? So that should we do the duties and
Yeah.
how should we live balance with the bhakti? So the answer that you said, I was able to follow that. But I just want to ask that what is that one fine line difference between the karma yoga and bhakti yoga? Because we're doing the same, right?
Yeah.
We're performing the duties, being righteous, developing the qualities, and remembering Bhagwan. Right? That is in the bhakti. So when we talk about karma yoga, what is it different?
Yeah. The difference is in the mentality, the motivation by which one follows that particular path, what the person inside thinks as the reason why the person is doing those things. Even though externally both may be doing the same activities. In the mind of the karma yogi, the motivation is basically to purify oneself, to become ready to perform jnana yoga in future, or ashtanga yoga, chitta shuddhi, so that one can eventually obtain mukti from this samsara. So the karma yogi has been inspired by the thinking that I am not a part of this samsara. My real happiness lies in realizing myself as the jivatma, which is different from this samsara, and becoming a mukta, not taking birth again. Okay, this motivation drives the karma yogi. He is not attracted to Bhagavan in a relationship. He's not looking at Bhagavan as an object of his permanent refuge. He's looking at jnana as the refuge. He's looking at knowledge, the pure knowledge of the self, because he has been told, or he has understood, his understanding is that this pure knowledge of the self, Atma, as different from the Deha, samsara, is the source of ultimate happiness. Ultimate happiness comes when this realization is achieved. So he pursues that. So he does all his duty with detachment. He tries to cultivate the sense of nirakanksha. Become free from phalakanksha, means the fruit of my activity, the punya that I will get, okay, or the wealth that comes, I don't want it. I will do my duty for the sake of duty, for the sake of doing it. But
and there we do duty for the
pleasure of Bhagavan. Yeah, because in the mind of the bhakti yogi, what is his long-term destination? What is he looking at as the goal? Now, if he's doing Kevala Bhakti, he's saying that my existence should be only Bhakti hereafter. I don't mind if I'm born again in the samsara. I don't mind, being born as a worm also, if I have to be born. So that I leave it to Bhagavan. In whatever way he wants to, use me, let him use me. The Pradhani Bhuta Bhakta thinks that I'm tired of living in this samsara and my eternal destination is Vaikuntha. I want to be in Vaikuntha. I want to be and engage in his service. I want to eternally live with him. I want to see him all the time. I want his presence around me. His bhaktas should be around me. I don't want anything else. So this is the Pradhani Bhuta Bhakta's thinking. So he does all his duties thinking that one day I will get that. Right? So everybody is doing the same All of these people are sadhus. They are all doing their dharma. All of them are dharmas. In that slide which I showed you, 3 types of bhakti: Guni Bhuta Bhakti, Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti, and Kevala Bhakti. All of them are dharmic people. Nobody is a criminal. Nobody is a papi. But the mentality with which they do dharma, that is different. The motivation to do dharma is different for them. That's what distinguishes them. You understood?
And if you want to place Karma Yoga in any of these 3, can you do that?
No. Karma Yoga won't fit into any of the 3 forms of bhakti that I said.
Because they are also aiming at Mukti, right?
They are aiming at mukti, but bhakti is not their goal. For them, mukti is the only goal. Bhakti is used as a tool to achieve that goal of mukti.
It could be Guni.
It's Guni Bhuta Bhakti, yes. So yeah, so among the 3, it will come under Guni Bhuta Bhakti. Guni Bhuta Bhakti, although the word bhakti is used there, it is not a form of bhakti. Only the other 2 are forms of bhakti. Guni Bhuta Bhakti is only, bhakti present in a very secondary sense. Like you have a big meal, where the main item may be your roti dal, but you also have some achar along with it. Yeah.
It wouldn't fall under bhakti at all, right? In bhakti, even in Guni Bhuta Bhakti, it would still be a goal that you're trying to achieve. But a
Yeah.
Karma Yogi, they're just using bhakti as a means to achieve.
Yes.
Mm.
That's why bhakti is present there as only as because there also, if you see 3rd chapter of Bhagavad-gita, at least in 2 places, Sri Bhagavan says, offer everything to me. Madarpanam, he says, right? I can show you the exact shloka after some time. So that Bhagavad-arpanam is a part of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga cannot happen without offering the fruit to Bhagavan, whatever that fruit is. Whether it is a punya or it is the arth that you get, you offer it to Bhagavan. Only then Karma Yoga is successful.
But that is just an offering and
Not bhakti. That is what is meant by Guni Bhuta Bhakti. Yeah, where you make use of that connection with Vishnu for achieving that success in Karma Yoga, which is Chitta Shuddhi. Yeah.
So, in the same way we are offering our punya to God, we might also get a refuge if something goes wrong inadvertently. So even the path is also not affected towards us. So
In
to
bhakti.
take an example, something like the story that you told.
Yes.
That if I am in a moral dilemma and Shastras say 2 conflicting things. So if I even violate, so I would not bear the fruits, even if negative, those will not come upon me.
Yes. In bhakti, yes, Bhagavan protects us. In bhakti, when we have followed, the dharma, the bhakti dharma properly without doing any aparadh, then Shri Bhagavan protects us. If we do aparadh, then he also turns away from us. He doesn't like it.
So what I was asking was, if there is a true bhakta, then even the aparadhs which are not intentional, they might also be excused.
Yeah, because for Keval Bhakti, there is nothing left. No? There is no means, there is nothing. There is just one person.
See, the bhakta tries his best to take care of aparadh to the extent possible, right? So the bhakta never thinks that even if I do unintentional aparadh, Shri Bhagavan will protect me. Instead, he thinks that Bhagavan will guide me, that I don't commit aparadh. He constantly asks Bhagavan to guide him, to not commit aparadh. That is the mentality.
Sir, can I share a 1 minute story, short story? I mean, you tell if this is enough.
Yeah.
So there is this deity in Maharashtra, usually revered, Vithoba. The story is, there was this person who was serving his parents, and he was so deeply engrossed in serving his parents that the Lord was pleased and he actually came to visit him. But he was so deeply engrossed in serving his parents, he simply threw a brick to him and said, you stand on this, I'll attend to you. But again, God was so much pleased with him that he said that I will now remain with you.
Yes.
So
there was no aparadh in that case. Yes. That happened spontaneously. Yeah. So that bhakta's state of mind was so naturally connected to Bhagavan. Or like Vidura, for example, Duryodhana invites Krishna. Krishna goes to Duryodhana to talk about the peace, to try to get peace avoid the war. Duryodhana lays out a lot of luxury for him, thinking that, this fellow likes a lot of decoration. He likes flowers, fruits, everything. So let me prepare a very grand, entrance for him. But Shri Bhagavan doesn't go there. He knows that this fellow is just trying to fool me. So he goes to Vidura's house, and it is said that Vidura, when he was offering the banana to him, he, removed the peel and offered the peel to Bhagavan and threw away the fruit. Normally, you would unpeel the banana and throw away the peel and offer the fruit. But this was an ecstasy, when he was feeling that ecstasy. So when Bhagavan knows it's the mentality. Of course, it is something that as a sadhaka, we don't think of these examples as exemplars for us. Absolutely not. This is something that happens in a very high and advanced stage of bhakti when one is not even aware of that. Right? Only then it is not an aparadh. But obviously, if it is done in a planned way, it becomes an aparadh, isn't it? Yeah.
Like God is Bhavagrahi, so like they say Lord Jagannath.
Yes.
So they see the Bhavana instead of.
Yes. And in the sadhana stage, the bhav is to follow the sadhana very strictly, as strictly as possible. You follow? That is, you don't compromise on your sadhana, citing bhav as an excuse for that. Saying that since I have bhav, I don't have to do this. Or since I have bhav, I can do it in a different way. So this is not acceptable. Sadhana is done in the way in which it is meant to be done. For example, if you are supposed to do japa in some manner, then you follow the japa principles in that manner only. Just by saying that I have bhav, and so Bhagavan will excuse this. Because Bhagavan is bhavagrahi, it will not work. Bhavagrahi is when one has done the sadhana for sufficiently long time, one is so mature that one will consciously take enough care not to do any violation of principle. The person who really has bhav will take extreme care not to violate any principle. And in that process, if something gets violated unknowingly, then that bhav explanation can be brought in. Not at our stage.
But so how can we live without violating any of the principles? I mean, even you agreed that
Yes,
in today's world, it's
we
not
do.
possible.
Yeah. So you try. So that's why. So you can live by trying to not violate as much as possible, to the extent possible. When you have to, why you cannot follow something, then you are conscious of it. You are conscious of the limitations that you have experienced in your
Like
process.
Ambarish used to do, like he used to follow every.
Very strictly. Yeah.
principles.
Yeah. So even though he was so elevated, followed everything very strictly, extremely
I
strictly.
think that's how people under him used to get motivated. and
Absolutely.
create ones for him.
So he becomes an example for others also. He's not doing it to become an example, but in the course of doing it, he becomes an example also.
So just one thing, we also spoke about, let's say, forgiveness. So at the end of everything, it was Amrish who gave the forgiveness, and that's when he was liberated, right? But that was because he was a bhakta of Shri Vishnu.
Yeah.
But in general, let's say in day-to-day lives, when we are trying to ask for forgiveness, we see a lot of people going to temples asking for forgiveness. Will that person really be forgiven in that sense, or do they have to really reach out to the person that committed the sin against, let's say?
It is said that if you commit aparadh against a bhakta, then the only person who can forgive you is the bhakta himself.
But does this apply to cases where that person is not a bhakta? Or then
The person that you offended is not a bhakta. Well, if it is possible to seek that person's forgiveness or to say sorry to him, then I think we should do that. I think even Vishnu would expect us to do that. That's my understanding.
So perhaps going to a temple and seeking forgiveness for the sins you've committed may not liberate you from it at the end of the day.
They will only if you are determined to give up the mentality of doing that particular kind of pap again in future. For example, somebody commits pap, goes to a temple, prays, and again comes back and commits pap, or uses the temple as a means to cover up for the pap and use it as a pretext to continue doing the pap again. Then it becomes very serious pap. It becomes even worse than that. So instead, if somebody says that hereafter I will never commit the pap, and I'll begin by first apologizing, I'll first go and beg for forgiveness for what I did and ensure that I will never do it again. Then yes, then it will definitely work. will definitely work. That's my understanding. Yeah.
So just on that Bhagavad, so sir, sadhana discipline is the primary thing, and Bhavagrahi happens to be the byproduct of it. Bhavagrahi can never be the primary, and sadhana discipline be the secondary.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So when bhav comes, the person's seriousness to follow sadhana increases.
This cannot be an excuse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's never an excuse.
It's never an excuse.
Yeah. When somebody is using it as an excuse, that means that person has no bhav. The person who is using bhav as an excuse really doesn't have bhav. Because if he had bhav, he will only want to do his sadhana even better. The person who has bhav will never say, now I have bhav and therefore I don't have to do my sadhana. Instead, he will think, all the time I was doing my sadhana in a very slack manner. I was compromising on so many things.
16 rounds of japa is not happening. I cannot
Whatever sadhana he's doing in his case. So I was not doing it in the correct way. I was not taking bath. I was not keeping my place clean. I was not sweeping the floor well enough. I was not decorating the vigraha properly. I was compromising on the quality of the food I was offering. So when bhav comes, then the seriousness to do that sadhana also becomes more. And the person becomes even more careful. The quality of the sadhana that the person with bhav does, or the person with prem does, would be even superior to the person without bhav, or without prema. Do you follow? So sadhana is not compromised as you go forward, rather it's strengthened as you go forward. Discipline gets strengthened. And that is the reason why this thing about using bhav as an excuse will never be possible. Yes, sir.
But sir, you said that once someone has prem, he does not give up on sadhana. But you were telling an instance of your very own guru that he had reached such an advanced stage wherein he was very indifferent towards the physical world. I mean, you told about the.
So he never gave up his sadhana. His sadhana was very strict. I've seen him.
But sir, about the yam and niyam, where I mean, one instance is shaucha, and then you said that when you went to his room, it wasn't the neatest room that you had seen in the world.
Shauch doesn't mean neatness of the room. Shaucha means cleanliness. It has two things. One is antashaucha, bahishaucha. Antashaucha is cleanliness of the mind. Bahishaucha is cleanliness of the body and other things also. So his room was clean in the shaucha sense, but it was not neatly arranged because he didn't, he spent his time completely in seva, Go seva, Shastra seva. He wrote so many books. My God, his books are very deep philosophy. I'm trying to study them now. Very deep. Slowly. I'm able to understand, but slowly. I have to read it slowly. Right? It's like that. He wrote his whole life, he spent writing books. So there was no time because he was alone, living alone. And he had sparsely any help. Normally, a lot of sadhus, they have people around them, right? I'm not saying that something is wrong with them or with him, but I'm just saying that different people have different types of environment. So in his case, his environment was, he was practically alone. He had a few people around him to help him. So his sense of shaucha was very high, and he was very disciplined, very strict. His sense of time also was very high. Although he is a traditional, he say Indians don't care for time, but he wasn't like that. He was not educated in the modern system. He was educated in the traditional system. He studied Shastra under the gurus. He studied all the darshanas. He started staying in Varanasi. He studied, and then he was very expert in understanding and explaining Shastra. But he had all the, the discipline of the most advanced professional, you would say. He was very professional in his work, very strict about the way things were done. He would not tolerate people making mistakes. He would quickly point out. Somebody came and had to fool around with him, ask him to get lost. It's very strict, very strict. So as you develop, you advance, you realize that duty should be done more strictly. Bhakti does not make you complacent, or you can relax. हो गया साधना सब हो गया अभी आराम करो अब सिर्फ खाओ लोग आके सजावट करेंगे पूजा करेंगे आपका. It is not bhakti. It is not bhakti at all. Some people misunderstand bhakti to be like this. So shall we close for today? I think we have gone beyond the time. We can talk more afterwards. We'll chant this shloka prayer to Ambar Vishnu. Om Tad Vishno Paramam Padagum Sada Pashyanti Surayah Divi Vachakshuratatam Tad Vipraso Vipanyavo Jagruvagum Sassamindhate Vishnor Yat Paramam Padam Paryaptya Anantaraya Sarvastamotiratra Uttama Mahadbhavati Sarvasyaptyai Sarvasya Jityai Sarvameva Tena Apnoti Sarvam Jayati. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.